Hi, Vijay. Lovely to see you. Hello, Elizabeth. Hi, Jeff. I see you every year. It's a ritual that you and I come to. Hi, Sophie.
Jeff gives us hope for the heartland of America. The real heartland of America. Okay, we are recording. Aparna, I'm going to make you co-host.
Sure.
So feel free to choose gallery
Should
view
we?
or
Yeah, that's
iPod
good.
or anything like
I'm
that.
just wondering whether we need to wait a couple of minutes. If people need to grab a bite to eat, the people in India, I think it's close to dinner time. And I'm wondering whether they want to grab a bite to eat and we can wait and you can come sated. It's a good way to listen to stories.
Okay, I'm making you co-host. Do you have any visuals that you want to show?
No?
Okay. Are you thinking of breakout rooms?
No.
Good, because the thing about the Chennai Storytelling Festival, usually at least half the people leave their cameras off. And I don't like to put people in breakout rooms if their cameras are off. So
Mm. Yeah.
what tends to work better is if people are invited to write or draw while they're still in the main room, or to type into the chat section of Zoom. So if you want that kind of interactivity, um,
It's
keep it
more whole group activity, Eric. So,
wonderful,
yeah.
wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, the advantage of people writing is that even people who have their cameras turned off can do it
Yeah.
freely and easily.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Sounds
now we have 7 people with our cameras turned on and 26 with their cameras turned off.
good. Yeah.
So if we do an activity, just the 7 of us, it'll be fine, but it's like we're putting on a show for the
Hello,
other
Shraddha. Yeah,
other
yeah.
26. So anyway, take over. I'm beginning by spotlighting you, and you can unspotlight yourself as you like, right? You know how to do it, right? And mm, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Eric. And good evening, everybody. I'm so very happy to be here. And I have very big shoes, and I'm not going to attempt to fill. Laura comes from a great tradition of storytelling, has been a pioneer. But I've had my experiences and I've had my learnings, and I would love to share them with you. And I was just wondering, and don't see everybody on video. I'm going to do. I would like to start. So my name is Aparna Athreya, as you can see, and I'm a storyteller from Bangalore. And I've been doing storytelling for a while now. Eric is a long uh, association and a dear friend. And I've been part of the Chennai Storytelling Festival for longer than uh, I can remember, but longer than I can tell in a couple of minutes. And there are many, many things that I've done as part of CSF. I also am part of the Bangalore Storytelling Society, and here we do storytelling. We promote, nurture, and revive the oral tradition in Bangalore, and we invite people from all over as well. So that's part of what I do. I'm also a storyteller who works with universities and corporates. So that's part of what I do. But today, the story is more um, something that's very close to my heart and something that I've really learned and I'd like to share with you. So what I would like is, hello, in a bad shape. Oh, okay. Okay, Devjani, sure. So anybody who can, please do come on camera because I'm going to take you through a visualization as part of the beginning, and it'll be nice to see you receive the visualization. So thank you, Padmashri. And those of you who can come, please do come on camera. And okay, Soumya is here. She's a dear friend of mine as well. Okay, so without any further ado, because I think 10 o'clock is really the sleep time for most people as well. So I'm going to try and keep it within time. And Soumya, if you can come on camera, it'll be really nice. Hello. Soumya is not on audio. Hi, Soumya. Yeah. So let's start off with a visualization. Now, if you're comfortable closing your eyes, I'd like you to close your eyes and receive my words. And if you're okay, go with the flow. So what I'd like to do is, as I do in many visualizations, as probably you've heard in many visualizations, I'd like you to sit up straight and sit with your back against the back of your chair. And I'd like you to keep your spine as straight as possible so that you're able to breathe in well, so that the air is able to reach the inside of your head and flush it with oxygen, which helps you also see through your inner eye, through your mind's eye, uh, with richness. And that's why you need to sit really straight. It helps you breathe well. So, sitting straight, I'd like you to take a deep breath. And I'd like you to close your eyes and stay with my voice. That's all right. And I'd like you to just listen to all the things that are going inside your thoughts, inside your heart. And I'd like you to just stay with your breath as you receive oxygen and as you receive energy from all around you, positive energy that allows you to experience all the things that I would like for you to experience. And I'd like you to receive the air around to build strength in your lungs and to build readiness in your mind and in your heart so that you may be sensitive to all the thoughts that come and make yourself aware of all the little tingling things that you might be able to see only if you're willing to quiet your mind and just listen. Listen to all the verbal inputs that you may receive from me, but also the non-verbal and intangible inputs that you may be receiving from yourself. And as you continue to take a deep breath, I'd like you to ready your senses, ready your sight, your inner sight. I'd like you to ready your sense of smell. I'd like you to ready your ears to receive what your mind sees, receive the sounds that your mind sees. I'd like you to allow for your skin to feel the touch and to feel all the sensations that your mind is receiving through your inner eye. And I'd like you to ready your senses, and I'd like you to just allow for any cloudiness that may be there in front of your eyes. I'd like you to allow for the dust and the smoke and the smog and the cloudiness to go away. Wait for it to settle, wait for it to drift away, and wait for your inner mind to see something that is going to be revealed to your eye, and make yourself ready to receive its presence. And as you steady your mind, I'd like you to open your inner eye to a landscape that is close to my heart, a landscape that you have had experience in yours, a landscape of the mountains. I'd like you to allow your mind to see it as clearly as you can. I'd like you to allow your mind to see as it becomes firmer, the image. I'd like you to allow your mind to focus on the little details, the smells that probably are wafting your way from this landscape. I'd like you to pay attention to the touch and to the sensation on your skin as you feel the presence of the landscape ahead of you, the landscape of mountains. And I'd like you to open your ears to the sounds of what you may be receiving from the landscape that's ahead of you. And as you steady your breath, I'd like you to fill your nostrils, fill your ears, and feel your skin, and feel in your heart all the things that this vision in your mind is bringing to you. And as you steady your breath and as you continue to take long, deep breaths, I'm going to trail my voice off to allow for you to focus on the imagery that is in front of you. And when you're ready, I'd like you to open your eyes and join me. And now I trail my voice off and I allow you to soak in everything that's in your mind's eye. Thank you. Thank you for staying with me. Thank you for taking time to soak in your thoughts. All right. As you gently come back, I'd like you to stay with everything that you currently have inside of you, have with you. And I'd like you to share what you saw, what you felt, what you heard, what you smelled. Yeah, Rajesh.
Uh, Actually, I was when you asked me to focus on mountains or the hills. In fact, there was some confusion. I mean, first I started looking at my mountain. I mean, the mountain in my village, and then I was transported from that mountain to something in Elephant and Ellora mountains, and somewhere back and forth at the wind, and the small road and the small canals and water. Uh, but it was just like I couldn't come to just one, but it was like back and forth. I couldn't control that.
Mountains are such. They are a multiplicity.
Yeah.
They
Uh,
are, you can't pin your finger on one mountain now, can you? And what you've seen is what you've seen. So it's beautiful that you've seen. Sometimes people see a range, and sometimes people see many different flashes of mountains that you may have associated with all through your life.
the flashes is the right word actually, because I could also, the time was like sometimes in the morning, sometimes in the evening,
Mhm.
sunset. So it was getting uh, you
Yeah.
know juxtaposed.
Thank you, Rajesh. Thank you. Okay, Mona, and followed by Elizabeth.
Hi, Aparna. And this visualization exercise was really powerful. I never went back into um, visualizing how mountains are important in my life. But
Mm,
when you said to imagine mountain, I was just transported to a trekking camp that I had done at the Darjeeling Mountaineering Institute.
very
And I
good.
was a little girl that time. I think I was a teenager, 13, 14 years old, all alone there with the troop. And I could feel the clouds that I had really experienced because we were trekking at a height,
Yes.
and we drank water which was natural mineral water, and they cut the bamboos and they make a stream where you can actually drink fresh water.
Yes.
So I could feel that taste, the
Wonderful.
sweetness of the water, and I could feel the breeze, the clouds, and there's some fragrance about the leaves and the forest in the mountains that
Yes.
you know and that was magical. I don't know, I never. And then when I was in this visualization exercise, I was questioning myself, what is there in my life, what I take from mountains.
Yeah.
First was this experience, and second is that I realized that a lot of the Devis are actually, their temples are on the mountains.
Very
And
good.
whenever I went there, it was a kind of, I felt energized, blessed. There was always gratitude. So it was an inner revelation. Thank
Yeah.
you so
Thank
much
you.
for the
Thank you,
exercise.
Mona. Thank you very much. Thank you. Elizabeth.
Thank you. Thank you for your beautiful visualization.
Mhm.
I really enjoy that because I really love mountains.
Mm,
Uh, it's paradoxical because I live in down on the earth in a
yeah.
continental part of my country,
Oh, I
and
see.
I never live in a mountain.
Uh-huh.
When I am near by mountain, or it's enough to think about
Yeah.
mountains, they empowered me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And in my visualization, I was there on top of the mountain,
Yeah.
and there was green, green grass and such a beautiful flowers,
Mm,
and they smell very, very beautiful.
mm.
And it was wind breeze on my face.
Ah,
And after that, um, in that moment, I saw everything so vivid and so clear colors.
yeah. Absolutely.
And I connected that with my perspective of about life, because when we are upper, we can see much clearer our situation,
Mhm.
and I am connected so much with the God.
To the God. Yeah. Mhm.
Yes, and
Yes.
after that, I was transported on the other side of the mountain. There
Mm.
was a waterfall.
Oh, I see. Wonderful.
Yes, and I was sucked in that waterfall, and I was under the waterfall. I felt the water drops
Yeah.
on my
Trickle down.
face, on my body. It was
Mhm.
magical, so
Good.
peaceful.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. So, in the interest of time, because I don't see hands up, I hope others will join in the conversation. But
Do you
let's go.
have time for just 2 more minutes? I just want to share my perspective.
Please go ahead.
Okay, so I don't know. I saw them like I've seen different kind of mountains again. Uh, I think it's always also the places that I've stayed in. I saw the mountains of Northeast. I saw the mountains in Uttarakhand,
Yeah.
and somehow what really reached out to me was the really those the edges in the mountains and the places that you would find your feet to move up,
Very good.
those little crevices.
Yeah.
And then interestingly, I'm a mountain girl, so I love mountains. And Interestingly, one more flash. I had a peek into another flash, and it was like when you see mountains from top in an
Yeah,
aircraft.
yeah,
So the way they looked, so I don't know, that image kept coming back to me, and there was along with that, there was when that image came up to me, it felt like I'm not at the summit, I'm at the top,
yeah.
and I could actually feel that chilly air blowing, and it was like a sense of relief that I've been on the mountain, on the
Wonderful.
top of the mountain.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you. Thank you so much. Veena, you want to? Just a minute.
Yeah, thanks. Nice to see you again.
Nice.
My mind was between two different kind of mountains. As soon as you said close the eyes, it was on a rugged mountain.
Mm.
Not the barren mountain, not many trees or anything there. Then when you said listen to the sound, suddenly I heard sounds, but these were the sounds. Not of birds because that mountain was bare, but my mind was transported to another mountain where you could see snow. I'm not from Croatia, but well, and the softness of that snow, I could hear it because it was so quiet. So I think the mind had just calmed down.
Yeah, yeah,
Thank you.
yeah. Thank you. And in fact, the mountain that I experienced when I've done this, and I've done this as part of, really quieting down and meditating on mountains, because I had the opportunity to go on a trek, just like Mona did, but much more recent. I went in 2024 in the month of May to a place called Kuari Pass, which is in the Himalayan region. It's in the Gadwal region of Himalaya. And it's about 12,500 feet at its peak. And it was a great journey. It was a great journey at different levels. And it is this journey at different levels which I have tried to put as a capsule to share with you. And that is the reason why I chose this. Of all the topics that I could have possibly chosen, this is why I chose this. And like many of you said, I too, when I close my eyes, I sometimes go to Kuari Pass, but I don't always. And sometimes I just go to another mountain. Now, the mountain that I'd gone to, as I prepared for this session, was a mountain that was full of trees. A little different from the mountain that Veena saw. It was full of snow. It was full of trees, and it had a little cave, an indent, and just shaped an indent that allowed for me to sit down there. And the moment I saw that, and the moment I saw this little cave, I thought that that is something that I'd like to invite you to and sit there. Take you along with me, because I'd like you to see what I saw. I'd like you to feel what I felt. And I'd like you to learn what I learned. And in this cave, I thought we should light a fire, like how storytellers light a fire. And they have always lit a fire. So let's light a fire. And for this fire, let's gather in your mind's eye the wood that's dry, that comes from the devdar trees that grow in the mountains where I saw it, and pick these and put it down. But here is where I'd like us all to, I'd like you all to come in with me, because we are going to light this fire with a flint stone. How many of you know flint stone? Yeah. So a flint stone is a stone that you just kind of rub against each other and then it lights a fire. Now the flint stone was something that our guide from Kuari Pass actually showed us. What I didn't know was there is a story why fire lies within the flintstone, and this story comes to us from the Kambu culture. There is a tribe called the Kiratis. They're called the Kamburais, who come from the Himalayan region. out of the many, many different tribes and cultures that exist there, these are a group of people who revere the heartstone and the flintstone. And the story goes like this. It's one of their origin stories. So it is said that in the beginning of time, where you or me or your grandpa or your grandma or my grandpa or my grandma did not exist, and it was long before that, it is said that there was the great elements, the fire and the water. They coexisted for a while, but all entities that exist too close to each other learn to establish themselves over the other. So it came to be that the fire one day looked at the water and said, "You're good, but I'm great." And water looks at fire and says, "Excuse me? Whatever made you think that? You know that I am the most powerful. I can go through rocks and I can break rocks. I can sear through rocks. I can bring down anything that I like. I am the most powerful." And fire says, "You have no idea what I'm capable of." And water had a shorter temper than fire. And so water couldn't tolerate this anymore. And water just leaped onto the fire. And fire was so taken aback that water came almost over it. And so fire began to turn and run and move away as quickly as he could. And he moved so fast that he went right up the hill. The water was not too far behind. She went right after. And then the fire turned around and couldn't believe it. Water was right behind him. And so he went right down into the valley. But just as fast as he was, so was water. And she came right behind. And then the fire went down the field, over the mountain, down the valley, over a great big forest. And still not a moment was there for water to realize where he was, and was right behind him. And fire was huffing and puffing and huffing and puffing. And finally, in the middle of the forest, there he saw a cave like ours. And at the foot of that cave, at the doorstep of that cave, was a flintstone that was just a bare flintstone. And it looked at the flintstone and it said, "Listen, I have looked everywhere and tried to run away from water. She is after me, and there is no way I'm going to survive. I do think she's stronger than me, but now it's too late for me to admit it. I'll tell you what, will you please allow me to hide within you?" And the flintstone looks, another great element, the stone, the earth, looks at fire and says, "Why should I hide you inside me? What am I going to get out of it?" And fire says, "Listen, I don't have too much time. Okay, I'll tell you what. If you allow me to hide within you, you will be revered as a stone that gets the energy from the sun, for I get the energy from the sun. People will always revere you, and people will know that if there is any evil anywhere around, all they have to do is hold you and appeal to the gods, for the gods will come and remove all that is evil. All you have to do is find your way into a shaman's hands, and the evil spirits will go away. And all you have to do is allow for yourself to sit underneath the hearthstones, for great fire will emanate from you. And every human, when they come, will know that from you comes great fire, and from you comes great energy. And you will have, and only you will have, that great title, the title of the firestone. Please allow me to hide in you." And so it is said that the flintstone agreed. And in that moment, fire disappeared right inside the flintstone as the water gushed inside and looked here and there, and she thrashed on the walls of the caves, but she could not find fire. And on that day, there was a stalemate. Fire remained inside the flintstone, and water looked everywhere until she gave up and left. And to this day, it is said that fire inside that flintstone stays and gives it powers. For every time there is evil around, and every time sometimes the evil gets into people and possesses them, these evil spirits are shooed away and chased away by holding these flintstones in the hands of the shamans. and appealing to the gods for all evil to disappear from the earth. And those are the flintstones that I would like us to use to light the fire of the storytellers who are sitting here and bring that fire up to listen to tales of mountains. Thank you for coming and thank you for helping me light this fire up with the Flintstones. And I'm so happy to have you around me because, after all, there is no storyteller who can possibly exist without the attention of listeners such as you. So, thank you for joining me. All right. So, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to tell you the layers the levels and the interpretations I had from the mountains. And a lot of what you said already segues into the first interpretation. You see, mountains and understanding mountains can happen at a very gross level, at a very physical level. And the first and most obvious interpretation of the mountain is its physicality. Is the gross body of the mountain. And like all of you said, mountains comes in different shapes and sizes. They have different ways of emerging and revealing themselves in this world. Sometimes they're seen as great ranges, and sometimes they are a single tall peak, and sometimes they're just a small little mound, a stone. That is not threatening. That is not frightening. That just allows for us to feel one with, to feel as if it's just a neighboring stone. So mountains can come in many different shapes and sizes. And I'm waiting to hear what are the physical experiences you have had. Before I hand over for you to share your mountain experience at its physical level, I'm going to share with you what I felt as I trekked up the Kuwari Pass and went up. Now this was a moderate trek, a trek of moderate complexity. And this trek was not something I had done before. I had climbed little hills, but not a trek and not in the Himalayas, which is a different game altogether. It is at a temperature which I have not experienced. I'm from the south of India, and I come from a place which is already at 32 degrees, and it's not even summer yet. And so, when I was preparing for this trek, there was great trepidation. I felt a little afraid. I didn't know if I was going to, one, bear the cold, if I could climb, and if I could manage with the lack of the thinness of the air, the lack of oxygen as you go climb up higher and higher. I was told, there were many stories that were told to me in terms of how I need to increase my lung capacity or I won't make it to the top. And so there was trepidation. And well, I thought that when I went to the base camp, this trepidation would go because I would be face to face with the mountain. But I was wrong, you see. As I stood there in the base camp and I looked at the sheer range of mountains, Mount Dronagiri was one, Nanda Devi was on the other side. All of these mountains stood right in front of me, and each one was taller than the other. Each one was looking fiercer than the other. Each one was looking down at me, intimidating me, almost scaring me, almost feeling small and insignificant in front of these great big mountains. And I did feel a very real fear because as I stood in that base camp, I knew that I had to reach a place that my eye couldn't yet see. And I felt afraid. I was almost the child of this mountain who was at the mercy of this mountain. And I remember almost feeling a sense of awe, but also surrendering to the mountain, for there was no way I could climb this mountain unless I surrendered to it. It was a greatly revealing experience for me. So I was a little child, curious, afraid, intimidated, and full of a sense of insecurity if I could go and make it. But the day we started the trek from the base camp, it was a 7-day trek. And for 5 days, we traveled up for 3 days up, 2 days down, and then we again reached the base camp on the other side. And as I went up to the mountain, as I crossed, as I climbed, whatever people say about mountains, it is true. You do feel breathless. And as you walk up, you're heaving for the next breath. And the mountain teaches you to respect it. The mountain shows you paths which will allow you and make you figure that there are paths that are easier than the other. You respect the ways shown to you and you go down that, listen to the mountain, listen to your body, and you will actually make your way through this. And so I learned that every steep that I had to cross had another way to it. It would take longer, but it would make me stronger. And so I took these little paths. I learned to find little things along the way which I would have never seen. It showed me little animals that I had never seen. It showed me squirrels that I had not seen the color of. They are not brown where I stay, but they were brown, they were bushy. Birds and bird calls I had never seen. And so it taught me the way of the world. And so as I went, being the child of a mountain at the bottom allowed me to assume a new role of that of a student. I was a student of this mountain. And as I went up every day, I learned something. Sometimes it made me stronger. Sometimes it made me wiser. And sometimes it just made me humbler. And so as I went up the mountain, I reached on the third day. I heaved and huffed and puffed and huffed and puffed, but I reached the top. I reached 12,516 feet. That was the top. And when I reached the top, something very different allowed itself to reveal to me. And in that moment, as I stood at the top, I did not feel afraid. I had gone past the little learnings. And there, as I stood upon that peak, I knew that I had found a companion in the mountain. And I stood there almost as if the mountain and me knew each other. I had spent time, and it may have just been 72 hours, but they are expanded when you're on the mountain. 72 hours could be 72 days, for all you know. It was an expanded, I was stuck in time. And as I stood there on the top, I knew that I had found a companion, somebody that I could talk to, that I knew that I could come back to. And there was almost an unsaid invitation as I stood there at the top, humbled, but loved, for I had listened and I had been loved. And therefore, there was an exchange of love. And in that moment, I knew that I had to share, for there were great learnings that I had, and there were great roles that I had assumed. And as I went back down the mountain, I was a storyteller, for everything that came to me as the story of the mountain. And I knew by the time I reached the other side that this is a story that needs to be shared. And I'm going to stop that story there, and I'm going to leave it open for you to tell me at a very physical level. You may have had experiences at mountains. Share it with us, and let us see your mountains through your eyes. And let's see the physicality of mountains, because once you go beyond the physicality, there is a very special another layer of mountains that I'd like to share with you. So let's quickly go around. If you have experiences to share about the physical aspect of mountains and your experiences, maybe in a hill station, maybe in a trek, or maybe just looking at a mountain. Would you have? Okay, Claire, yes. Yes, Claire. Okay. It's not just me, right? Claire has a bad connection, yes? Yeah.
Then I was bringing a friend on a bicycle ride up into what we call mountains. here where I live, it's called the Helderbergs, the Healthy Mountains. And it's not very high, and we often ride our bikes up the mountain.
Wow.
And I was with a friend, and we rode to a point where we could see the escarpment of the mountain.
Mm-hmm.
And I pointed to the top and I said, "That's where we're going." And she looked at it and she said, "No effing way." But she did it. She did it. And the ride home was well worth it.
Wonderful. Oh, yes. And, you know, they always say, well, the rule of the mountain is they always say it's taller than it looks, it's farther than it looks, and it's harder than it looks, right? But you finally reach there and you know that it may be harder, it may be farther, and maybe, taller, but it's there for us to embrace, right? So, yeah, I love your story and I love the fact that your friend joined you in it and you submitted it together. It's such a great feeling, and it's always a community. Mountains bring people together. There is something very special that happens between people when you climb mountains. So I hear you and I feel you, and I wish I can ride on your mountain someday. Thank you, Claire. Yeah. Just Kiran.
Okay, so my story is about the Valley of Flowers.
Ah,
I went to the trek on Valley of Flowers, and since I've grown up in and around mountains as a child, although most of my life I grew in South India, but it would always be a summer trek on the mountains.
yeah.
So I thought I had it all. Okay, and then I went to Nagtipa and all these smaller treks, and Valley of Flowers was slightly difficult, and everybody kept telling me, "No, you'll make it, you'll do it." And somewhere, when you've been doing it all your life, you think it's okay.
Doable.
It'll be okay. It'll be a little difficult, but it'll be okay.
Yeah.
And like you said, when you're standing at the base, you really don't realize the enormity of it.
Yeah.
And so I started off, and every time I found myself that initially, when I was feeling a little reckless,
Yeah.
the mountain would do something which would make me real. It's like a parent.
Yeah.
The parent gives you a finger to hold your finger and you learn how to walk with them.
Totally is.
And then when you are already on your own, you start being a little reckless. And then something, a little push there, a little, slap here. And then you again come back to
here
path.
and a cut there, and you know that
Yeah, and you back to the path,
Yeah.
And the best part is when you stick to following the parent. I mean, for me, I always look at the mountain as a parent. That I just hold the finger of the mountain and the mountain keeps taking me where I want to go. It would always reward me. Valley of Flowers is known for these beautiful sights.
Yeah. Did you go during the flowering season?
Yes, it was the flowering season. And it was beautiful. And, every time you would just have that problem with breathing, you would just stop, look around, and then you would be, rewarded by this beautiful scenery around. And then you just forget what's happening.
Absolutely.
And the only way I could draw a comparison to this whole exercise was when I was birthing my son. Okay, and the pain you go through it, the crescents of pain up and down and up and down. And then when you have the child, everything just goes.
Yeah.
You don't remember the pain. So when you reach the top of the mountain, it feels like that. You just don't feel anything after that.
Yeah. Wonderful. What a great metaphor. Yeah. So we're going to talk about metaphors. Thank you for sharing that beautiful story. Jaskiran. Thank you so much. Yes, Vijay Lakshmi. Quickly, 1 minute. Okay. So we can go forward. But I'd love to hear your story. Vijay.
I enjoyed your story, but it took me back to very recently in November 24. I went to Arunachal Pradesh to the highest point, which was the Bumla Pass, which is 15,500 feet.
Wow.
And I'm also a hill girl, grew up in the Northeast in Shillong, where there were a lot of pine trees. And I could visualize, but here it was just dark, just rock, stone, and gray.
Yeah.
Nothing else. Maybe in some of the crevices, you could see some green, peeping through.
Yeah.
But otherwise, and what did it say? Don't be in a hurry. Walk slowly. Thanks to my yoga at that height, because usually they, ask people to stay in a lower height for some time before going to the pass.
Yep.
Fortunately, maybe because of yoga and other things, I was able to walk. But it said, slow down.
Yeah.
Take it easy.
Yeah.
Don't
Few
rush.
steps, stop.
That is the
Pause.
message it gives.
Yeah.
Overpowering and absolute chill, the chill factor.
Yeah.
Going through your bones.
Yeah.
And stark gray everywhere.
Yes.
And it makes you feel absolutely humbled.
Yeah.
That's nature.
Yeah. Yeah.
And but the beauty of the skies, which were so blue, you'll never get to see it anywhere except there.
Yeah.
The purity in the air
Yeah.
around those mountains was just so crisp and so beautiful. Like here, when you are in Delhi or in Bangalore, you do get a lot of pollution, but there it was that crystal clear blue skies and absolutely pure oxygen.
Absolutely.
So it was like, take in your fill of oxygen, take it easy before you go back.
Yeah, wonderful.
That's what I thought.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. What a beautiful story. So I want to just quickly, share with you the message in terms of understanding mountains, right? So one way to understand mountains is to really understand it at a physical level, right? There is such a gross physical aspect. And no two mountains are alike. Just like our footprint, there is fingerprint. There is no two mountains that's alike, and each mountain is unique. And in its physicality, there are great stories. And therefore, the most gross and the most obvious, overt level of understanding a mountain is from its physicality. But I'd like us to move into the next kind of understanding. And the next, of course, some of you already mentioned it. And some of you mentioned it during your visualization that you saw the gods and goddesses in your mountains, right? You saw, you felt, you sensed the gods and goddesses. So I would like to share with you. So first is, of course, mountain as a physicality. The second is mountain as a folklore, folk tale, myths. So really from the fantasy side, right? Mountains as a fantasy, understanding mountains from a fantasy level. When I say fantasy, I'm just giving an umbrella term for the myths, the folk tales, the legends and so forth that comes under the umbrella of fantasy, right? So there is a very famous conversation, really a timeless conversation that happens between Earth and Vishnu, who is the sustainer of life. From the Hindu mythology, there is Vishnu, one of the Trinity. We have three gods, one who is the creator, who is Brahma, and Vishnu, as all the Indians here know, who is the preserver, and Shiva, who is the destroyer. So there is a timeless dialogue that happens between Earth and Vishnu, the preserver. And she says, why, O Lord Vishnu, why do you embody mountains instead of manifesting in your divine form? And Vishnu looks at her and he smiles with great serenity, great wisdom. And he answers and he says, the joy found in mountains surpasses that of any living beings, even the gods. And that the mountains never feel heat, nor cold, pain, nor anger, fear, nor pleasure. And that is why, Lord Vishnu says, that is why we three gods, Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva, will be present as mountains, and we will dwell on earth for the welfare of mankind as mountains. And if you look at the mountains, there are mountains. Mount Meru is the mountain which is the embodiment of Brahma, also the house of Brahma. And Mount Kailash is the house for Shiva. And Vaikuntha is the house for Vishnu. So now, mountains, all of these come from Hindu mythology, but mountains have got great number of folk tales as well. And I'm very curious, of course, to find out from all of you, if you recall folk tales, or it has been, mountain has been an archetype for lovers to unite, lovers to separate as two separate rivers. The rivers that originate suddenly find the two lovers separate out, and sometimes they unite. And so there are great stories. But before I hand you and help you to bring your stories from your culture and your experiences to the group, I will share with you a story that is very close to my heart. And for those of you who know the south of India, I'm sure some of you do, I'm going to tell you the story of Shiva, who's embodied in a mountain. And the name of the mountain is Arunachala. And Arunachala is in Tiruvannamalai, not too far from Chennai. And all the people from Chennai would definitely know about Tiruvannamalai. And Arunachala is the story there. So this story comes from mythology, and I will start with a little prayer for the great Arunachala, the mountain, which is an embodiment of Shiva, and it goes like this. It is Aksharamanamala. Sure, some of you may have heard it. Arunachala Vararketra Aksharamanamala Satra Karuna Karaganapati Karamarulai Kapaye Arunachala Shiva, Arunachala Shiva, Arunachala Shiva, Arunachala, Arunachala, Arunachala Shiva, Arunachala Shiva, Arunachala Shiva, Arunachala, Arunachala Mena Ahmeni Nai Power, Ahatai Vera Rupai Arunachala. Agamu sundaram pol agamum niyumutra abhinamayiru poyarnachala. Even before the beginning of time, when the three gods, the Trinity, resided, it so happened that just like the fire and water, who had a fight about supremacy, Brahma and Vishnu suddenly had an argument. And Brahma, the creator, said, I am, of course, the most powerful because I have the ability to create all around me. And I will keep creating yuga after yuga, age after age. And therefore, I am the most powerful. And Vishnu looks at him and says, how can you be more powerful? You may create, but who is going to sustain it? Who's going to sustain it for the entire yuga? You will take a moment to create it. And then what happens? Who sustains it? I am obviously the more powerful. And this goes back and forth until they are not paying any attention to the creation, nor are they paying attention to the sustenance. And therefore, all the devas and all the people on the earth suffer from this. And therefore, the devas decide that something needs to be done, and they go to Lord Shiva, and they ask him and they tell him, listen, these people, these two gods are fighting, and they are fighting like little children. So I would like you to please see if you can do something to intervene, mediate, and try and see if you can get them to bring sanity back into their heads. So Shiva says, I will do what I can. And Shiva decides in that moment that he will transform himself. And he transforms himself to a great column of light. A column of light that has no beginning, that has no end. And it is just a column of pure light that blinds the eye of the entire three worlds and all the worlds beyond. It blinds them, for this column of light is just a shaft of light that nobody has ever seen before. And this shaft of light appears in front of Vishnu and Brahma. And there is a voice that speaks. And they say, you may think that you are more powerful, but the person, the God, who will be more powerful is the one of you which can find the end or the beginning of this column of light, of me, says the voice. And immediately, Brahma and Shiva look at each other and say, yes, that's right. We are never going to solve our problems. Let's go and find the end of it. And so Brahma straight away ascends to the top. He says, I'm going to look at the head of this column of light, and Vishnu is left with going down. And so Vishnu goes down and down and down and down until he goes far beyond the worlds that exist beyond. And he has to take the form of a boar, to go and dig underneath the earth and many, many worlds beneath, so that you can go down, and wherever, however deep he went, he just saw the column of light, and it never ended, never ended, never ended, kept going, kept going, kept going. Until came a time when Vishnu looked, and there was a dawn of realization, and he said, there is no end to this. I can't find the bottom of this. And so he sat down and began to meditate, just to meditate on the column of light. While Brahma, on the other hand, went up and up and up and up and up, and further he went, looking for the end, the head of this light. But no matter how high he went, he could not find the head of this light, and he was getting a little tired. But you see, so competitive was Brahma that he looked and said, something needs to be done. And as he looked around, a flower, an asle flower, it came down from the top. Now, he didn't know where it came from, but it was floating downwards. And he said, yes, this is my moment. And he took the flower in his hand, in his palm, and he said, I'm going to show this flower. I'm going to use this flower as evidence. And so he turned around and he came down. He just stopped where he stopped, where he found the flower, and he came down all the way to where Vishnu was. And Vishnu by then had awakened from his meditation, and he was ready to concede that he did not find the bottom of the light. And he looked at Brahma, and he looks at the column of light, and he says, oh, great column of light, I have not found the bottom. I concede, I am sorry, I am not powerful enough to find. And Brahma says, see, you could not find, but I did. I found this flower on the top, on the head of this column of light. There is another great story for what Brahma had to face for having said this great lie. And he was punished for eternity, never to be prayed, and the asle flower never to be used, because it was witness and it abided in this crime. It was a partner to this crime, which is never used to pray to Lord Shiva. But what happened was that the voice spoke again, and it pointed out and it called out Brahma's bluff, and it said, you have not found, for there is no beginning to this light, and there is no end to this light. And what you need to focus on is not about who is more powerful, but just focus and experience the light that is within each of you. And find that light. And when you find that light, there will be no need for you to find power. And that's for another story for another day. But what happened to that column of light was there was so much of heat, and there was so much of light that it was blinding, it was burning everything around. And all the Devas, when they saw that the fight had come to a close, they begged and they prayed, and they told everybody, they told the great column of light to do something, for we cannot bear this column of light. And so Shiva, embodied in that column of light, cooled down, and suddenly that column of light transformed itself to a hill that is called Arunachala. Achala is a hill, that which does not move, and Aruna is fire, light, also for the sun. So Arunachala is that which does not move, which is fire. And even to this day, people say, and if you ever go to Tiruvannamalai, if you ever go to Arunachala, see, for there will be traces of red, for it is Shiva, as fire, as a column of light, which today comes to us as a mountain to meditate upon and to find that inner light within us. Now, this is a story that comes from the folk of mountains, from the mythology of mountains. And I would like to ask you very quickly, for we have no time, but I would like you to maybe give us the title of certain folk tales or stories that you may have come across in your culture, or through your listening experiences, and share it in the group just as the title, and maybe point out where we can read about it or listen to it. So I open the floor for all of you to share with me any mountain stories that you may have heard as mythology or legends or folk tales. Do you have any?
I do.
Yes.
Oh,
Go
Ben
ahead.
Pinchot.
Yes,
I was just looking at the text, the chat. So again, where I live in upstate New York, we have what we like to call mountains, and we have the Adirondacks to our north of Albany, which is 150 miles north of New York City, and near New York City, we have the Catskill Mountains.
Yeah.
And there's stories about Henry Hudson and his crew.
Oh,
and
yes.
yeah, and many people believe that when it's thundering, there's you can hear Henry Hudson and his crew bowling.
Yeah, yeah. Yes, these are legends that, we don't know how much of it is true, but it certainly is meant for listening ear. They certainly have learning lessons for us. Thank you for sharing that very much. Veena had raised her hand. Go ahead, Veena.
Well, when we lived in New Zealand, the Maori culture,
Yeah.
they have lots of creation stories, and
Yeah.
some of the stories are on mountains. I don't really remember them. So it's the earth and the sky, Paparangi and something. I really don't remember. So I was trying to look it up just now.
Ah.
But maybe y'all can, whoever wants to, can have a
Find that creation story.
yeah, find the
Maori
creation
culture.
stories about Taranaki. Tongariro and Taranaki. So there's some of the words that I still remember, but yeah, the creation myths and stories and legends about the mountains in New Zealand.
Yeah, yes, wonderful. So there's also a lot of stories of lovers. There's one beautiful story that's there from Sikkim, from the mountains of Sikkim, which is the lower Himalayas, which has got Tista and Ranjit. So they are two, gods, spirits, which are rivers, and they're lovers, and they get torn apart, and they get very angry, and they flood the place, and then everybody appeases to the gods, and finally the gods help the rivers to subside, and they've been parted, and so the gods allow for them to meet again and stay as lovers. And even today, when a marriage happens in the Sikkim region in the northeast, people pray to Ranjit and Tista as a symbol of eternal love. So, these folk tales are there, and they're there everywhere. Mountains are rich with all kinds of folk tales. So, if you ever, two hands are up. Just Kirat, yes. And followed by Jeff. I'm looking forward to Jeff's as well.
So similar to it's a creation tale again. Just now when Veena was talking about it, I remembered it. It's Arunachali. So there's a tribe in Arunachal. I do forget the name, but they believe that the earth and the way why earth has mountains, they have a story around that.
Yeah.
Apparently, they were long before the creation happened. They were two eggs, and they were really in love with each other. So they would always be around each other.
Okay.
Always around with each other. So much so that they just kept moving around each other, and they just banged into each other. And then they were all over the place. So from one piece, they say, came the earth, and from the other, the sky.
Yeah.
Now the earth was really, really big, and the sky would always look at the earth very lovingly and say, you're my wife, but you're so vast, I can't hold you. I can't hug you. And apparently the earth said, okay, I'll try to shrink myself. And every time she would start shrinking herself, little mounds would start coming up on earth. And apparently that's how I believe the mountains came in, because the earth shrunk itself so much that you had mountains everywhere. And the sky was finally able to hold her.
What a beautiful story. And something I've not heard. So thank you, Jaskirat. What a great story. Jaskirat is talking to a family in between. All right. So thank you. And we will move to Jeff. In the interest of time, we'll come back to Jaskirat when she's ready.
This isn't so much about the folk stories of the
Yeah.
mountains
Uh-huh.
as there's a whole nother side of mountains that most people don't get to experience. Now, you've talked about the immensity of the mountains, and
Yeah.
I've seen that in the Rockies and the Appalachians.
Mhm.
But in Oklahoma, there's a range of mountains called the Arbuckles
Okay.
that are over 1.4 billion years old.
Whoa.
They're the oldest mountains in North America. They are so old that they lay on their sides. And you talked about when you climbed the mountain gave you messages. The Arbuckles give messages, but it's like they're dreaming. It's mountains, but it's an entirely different feel, and the feel of just the immensity of their age is just totally overwhelming.
Yeah.
And you feel like you need to whisper when you're there.
Mm.
So there's a totally another side of mountains if you can find a range of mountains that's incredibly ancient. They're the only mountains I know of that actually lay there.
The Himalayas are the youngest mountains, the youngest great mountains. And it's amazing that you come from a place which has got the oldest, or one of the oldest. And you're right, there is something that's awe-inspiring, and you actually want to speak low, and you actually want to, to respect it and not spoil the sanctity. Being loud, or being, being really disrespectful in terms of even throwing something. There was nobody in the entire trek group who dropped a single bit of food or a cup, or there was nothing. And they were not told. There's something magical that happens. There is something that comes from within. Then you see something so mighty, and you see something that has seen so much, like you're saying.
There's the overwhelming mystery of mountains.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Thank you so much, Jeff. Lovely. And thank you. Hopefully, I will get to see your mountains one day in Oklahoma. So thank you. And I hope you come to the Himalayas someday. And Jaskirat, thank you for the beautiful story. And I know you got a little distracted with your family, but thank you for sharing that beautiful story. Maori stories from New Zealand. Veena, okay, has given us the legend of Mount, how do you say that? Auraki?
Mount Auraki.
Auraki. Okay, great. Thank you for sharing the stories. Okay, so I'm going to just move to the final. Okay, to the final segment. So we talked about understanding mountains at a physical level, like physicality of mountains, understanding mountains through folk. Okay, and understanding the third, and I'd like us to kind of finally go into the most subtle aspect of understanding mountains, which is really understanding through the figurative, through through the abstractness of what they could stand for, the possibilities that they offer us in terms of resonating in our real lives. And that's what a metaphor is, isn't it? So I'm going to tell you a little story that I truly loved listening to, which is a great metaphor for stories. So like all good stories, this one starts with once upon a time. So once upon a time, there is this young man, and he's one of many siblings, and the father, who is a good man, looked after his children, and he had a lot of land, and he left the land and he moved on. And he when he passed on, the children were supposed to divide the land, and each one got a share. But you see, this young man was unable to hold on to his land. And all his brothers, all his siblings suddenly turned to monsters for, they just did not allow him to keep what was his. And they started to steal from him. They took away his lands, and until he was left with nothing at all. And there was one evening when he was sitting all by himself, absolutely dejected, absolutely nowhere to go and helpless. A friend walks by and looks at him and says, "What is with you? Why are you looking like this?" And he says, "I can't tell you. This is the end of my life. There is nothing that I can call my own. I've lost my family. I've lost my belonging. I've lost the very land that was supposed to be mine. I have lost my identity. I don't have anything. This is it." And his friend says, oh, that's a big problem. I'm not sure I have the solution, but I'll tell you what. Go to the wise old man. The wise old man has an answer to everything. That's what I hear. So go and ask him. And so the wise old man, he finds out, he sits on top of the mountain. And he goes, this young man, for he really, really does not like the way he lives, does not like that he has reached the end of his life, literally. And he's up against a wall. And so he makes the trip all the way to the top of the mountain, no matter how hard it wasn't. There upon the mountain sat the old wise man, not doing anything old or anything wisely. He was just watering his plants. And this man looks at him and says, sir, are you the old wise man? And the man looks at him and says, I'm old. You can see that. I'm not sure I'm wise, but I've had many experiences. Do you have a question? And he says, yes, I have a question. You know what? I'm supposed to be the owner of my land. I'm supposed to own a house. I'm supposed to own land. I'm supposed to grow crops, and I'm supposed to make money, and I'm supposed to have all of this. And everybody, all my siblings who I thought of as my own, have taken it all away, left me with nothing, and I have nothing. Tell me, how do I get what is mine? And the old man looks at him and he smiles with infinite wisdom and he says, I want you to be the mountain. And this young man looks at him. He respects him too much to ask him what that meant. So he bows down and he turns around, and as he walks back, he thinks about it and he suddenly realizes he knows what the old man meant. For as he walked down that great mountain, he realized that he needed to be as strong as the mountain, as tall and sturdy as the mountain, and unyielding like the mountain. And so when he goes down, he goes and he's unyielding, and he's strong, and he stands tall, and he claims what is his, and he speaks to his brothers, and he tells them, and he takes back what is his. And he finds that he has got back what he had lost. Time went by, things were all right for a while, but they were not fine for too long. And in a few months' time, this young man, now he didn't need to ask his friend where the old man was, for he knew where he was. And so he went up all the way to the top of the mountain. And there, sure enough, the old wise man was just sitting and cooking himself a meal. And he says, sir, I've come again. And the old wise man looks at him and says, you have a question? And he says, yes. You know what? I've got the land and I have grown crops, but I'm not really sure if I can hold on to this. I'm not really sure if I can be called a landlord. People don't seem to respect me. I'm not sure I'm going to be successful. I've done it for a few months, but I'm not really sure. I'm not sure I'm going to have enough to give my children. I'm not sure I'll be the kind of man my father was. I'm not sure. And the old man looks at him, puts his hand out and smiles with infinite wisdom, and he says, I'll tell you what. Don't be the mountain. You don't be the mountain for yourself. This young man was too afraid and respected the old man too much to ask what he meant. And so he turned and he started to walk down this great mountain. As he walked down the great mountain, he began to think what it might mean. And that is the day he realized, and that is the moment he realized, that the old wise man told him not to become the adversity in his own life, not to become the obstacle, and not to become a man full of self-doubt. Don't become your own obstacle, and don't come in your own way. And so as he went down that mountain, he had a great big smile on his face. For when he went down, he looked and he asserted himself, and he killed all the doubt that he had, and he found his command, and he found his authority, and he found that when he commanded, he came commandingly, he commanded respect even, and he got respect, and suddenly everybody looked at him and they knew that he was the landlord and he was the man who owned the place, and they all knew that he would be the man who would pass on a legacy to his children. Months turned to a couple of years, and he was a well-respected man by then. But finally, after a couple of years, this not so young man by now went all the way up the mountain to the old wise man. And the old wise man was just older, but also wiser. And he looked at this young man and he said, "Ah, you're back. I'm sure you have a question." And he says, "Yes, thank you for showing me the way. Thank you for telling me what to do. But I can tell you this. You told me to be the mountain when I needed to, when I was. You told me not to be the mountain, and I was not. But now I can tell you, no matter what, I am not, I'm not, I don't feel fulfillment. I'm not happy. I don't feel a sense of peace and joy. Tell me, what is it that I need to do? I have the land, I have the respect, I have the people who work for me, and things are good. I have the money, I have a legacy to pass on to my children, yet I don't feel that joy, I don't feel that fulfillment." And the old man says, "Now you're ripe for my final piece of advice, and that is this: go beyond the mountain and go find yourself." And he was too afraid and he respected him too much to ask him what he meant. But as he went, like you do, he too knew what it meant to go beyond the mountain and to find himself. For as he found himself, there was no need for him to ever go back to the top of that mountain, for he had found true joy. And that's my story for you. And that's a story that resonated with me a great deal. That's a wisdom story. So I hope you enjoyed it. And this takes me to that final portion of today's conversation, which is, how can you look at a mountain as a metaphor? How can you look at a mountain as a figurative aspect, as an abstract aspect? So I'm going to ask you a question, and I'm hoping for you to interpret it the way you see fit. I'm going to ask you this. If you were to look at a mountain, think of a mountain and see it as a metaphor, because one metaphor came to us from Jaskirat. She talked to us about how the summiting of a mountain is like the birthing of a baby. But I'd like you to think of what are the kind of metaphors that a mountain reveals to you in this time and in this moment, and share it with me and share it with the group. And let's see how mountains are speaking to you right now from the innermost recesses of your mind, the metaphorical recesses. Guy Sebastian's song, Climb Every Mountain. Oh, yes. That's a beautiful song. And that's coming to your mind. Wonderful. So I want to know, how do you see a mountain as a, do you see a mountain as an obstacle? Do you see the mountain as that which is strong, that which is mighty? What is a mountain a metaphor for you today in this moment?
It's a mother's lap.
Ah, what a beautiful, beautiful metaphor. It is indeed a mother's lap, and just like a mother who sometimes scolds and sometimes loves, but always protects those that respect her and those that love her. I too see a mountain as a parent, and so does Jaskirat, and we shared notes about that. So thank you, Padma, for sharing that. It's a beautiful metaphor of parent. Mountain as a protector and a guardian. Lipika, that's a beautiful, beautiful metaphor. Also, it is one of the most often used metaphors, because it is, mountains are great protectors. And in fact, from this metaphorical aspect are the more grosser aspects of actual gods and goddesses, the stories of gods and goddesses coming, because they are protectors, because mountain is seen as a protector, that which which is there, which is really big, which protects us literally from the elements like the winds, And it is also the protector and the guardian, but also the giver, because it is that which brings rains, right? It is that which allows for rains to happen. Mona, you've lifted your hands. Go ahead.
Yes, I feel that the mountains are they are a mirror of life, because when you are young, you think that, passing your 12th would be a milestone and you will feel joy, but then you feel there is another range ahead of it, and now there is another milestone again, and you meet so many people, like you see so many species in that particular mountain, and then it's just about moving on and on and on.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you so much. And that just reminds me, those of you who from therapy, I don't know if you know the concept of two mountains, right? So two mountains is when you're standing on one mountain and looking on at another mountain. It's a metaphor for two people. When you're away from them and looking, the fact that you're standing on a different mountain allows you to look and to see the mountain in its entirety, for you're standing away and looking at it, just like how a mentor, a friend, a companion, a therapist, a guide can stand on another mountain, look at you, and will be able to look at you just by virtue of standing on another mountain and looking in its entirety to bring you perspectives which you may not be able to figure out, the crevices, the falls, the cracks, because you are right there and in it, and you may not be aware of it, right? So that is a great metaphor, the metaphor of the two mountains, which is there in therapeutic language. Claire, yes.
Thanks, Aparna. And I was in my mind before you started speaking about um, seeing from the mountain, that being at the height of the mountain gives you clarity. You can see so much. So you said it much better than I did, but that was going through my mind as well.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you so much. Absolutely. So that is a great metaphor. It's also a often used metaphor in the world. Two hands are up. Jeff, go ahead. Thank you, Claire. Lovely thoughts.
Community. We think of mountains as immense things, and we think about them being stone, but a mountain's a community. It's trees, it's bushes, it's flowers, it's fish, it's bears, lions, mountain
What
goats.
a great
It's
metaphor.
community. It's the ultimate expression of life.
Of an ecosystem, yeah?
Yes.
Yeah, it is an ecosystem. It's a world of its own. For the bird that sings upon the mountain has no home if there were no mountain. And the tree has no home if there was no mountain. And therefore, the mountain is home to all. It is really the bedrock of the world itself. What a beautiful metaphor. Thank you so much for sharing that. Yes, Veena, go ahead.
To me, I think it reminds you of the mystic. Something which is it may be right in front of you, but you may not be able to climb it, or you may not be able to reach it, or you may not, of course, be able to penetrate it.
Yeah, yeah.
So it is very much there, but not there.
Yeah.
Something, yeah.
Yes.
But in another way, definitely it is so physical, it is there.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
as I say, go beyond it, mystic for me.
Wonderful. Yeah, there is something mysterious about mountains for sure. And they don't.
Aparna, I don't know, this thought just came to me that mountain is also me, like yourself.
Yeah.
Okay, because there's so much which you don't reveal.
Yeah.
There's so much that you can create, like a volcano comes out of a mountain, and it creates land masses. Okay. And then also, you are difficult at times, you are guiding at times, you create at times. So all in all, you are a mountain yourself, because there's so much that is going on inside you. And then there are these nooks and corners which nobody peeks at and sees at. But they all exist. And there's also those little places where you grow something, those crevices where those little green things mushroom.
Yeah.
So sometimes you're barren, sometimes you're filled with hope, sometimes you are, giving, sometimes you're taking. So
Yes. And you are different to different people.
yeah, so you're different to different people look at you differently.
Yeah, yeah. Absolutely. And I think that, that's a great way for us to, come to closure with that beautiful thing. Mountains are many things, but it is me itself, the self. So that is a beautiful, beautiful way for us to come to the close of this activity. And Michelle, is that how you say your name? Michelle? Thank you. Okay, so she says yes. Okay, so she says that a mountain is like a challenge that makes me move forward, move higher, overcoming obstacles and showing me the goal. How absolutely right it is. I mean, every single day you are summiting a mountain. Every single day there is a new challenge. Every single day is going to be a climb upwards and a climb downwards and a lesson learned, isn't it? So you have to just allow for yourself to be present to the mountains that are around you every day, but know that you can summit it and know that you will learn from it, and know that even if you do not summit it, you either win or you learn, right? So that's how I see it. So that's wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. And so Eric is back right on time. And thank you for your feedback, just Kirat. So I'm going to just end with one final quote about mountains. And William Blake, all of us know him. So he just writes one line among the many other things that he's written. He says, great things are done when men and mountains meet. This is not done by jostling in the street. And today, you and I and all of us have met on a mountain. And it was not a jostling street. And I think great things have come out of it. So thank you for your time. Thank you for sharing your stories with me. And thank you for all the good times you've given me in my little cave in my mountain. Thank you so much.
Great. It was a beautiful workshop. I was here the whole time, but I had to walk around. But anyway, it was a wonderful workshop.
Thank you so much, Eric. And yeah, I missed you a little bit because I couldn't see you, but thank you
I'm
for
sorry.
listening. Yeah. Thank you, everybody. And thank you, Eric. As always, you are so magnanimous with giving, sharing your platform with all of us, bringing the world to one place. So I'm eternally grateful.
Thank you.
And you've been my mountain in my journey.
He moves mountains to make ways.
So thank you, Eric.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Have a good night. Aparna, that was really lovely. Very well curated.
Thank you so very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Good night.